Hey everyone, welcome to another video. Today we're going to talk about issue number 1 of X-Men From the Ashes, written by Jed MacKay. But before we dive into the story, I want to ask you a favor. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like and a comment to help the channel grow. Now the island nation of Krakoa was a safe haven for all mutants, but now, that is no more. For the mutants find themselves once again displaced across the globe, and the fate of the X-Men has yet to be determined. Now this issue opens up 20 minutes outside of Merle, Alaska, with a police officer sitting in her car, staring at the imposing factory complex in the distance. So as the Alaskan cold bit at her through the window, she let out a sigh and braced herself for what lays ahead and said, well, here we go. Because when it comes to this story, it picks up an undisclosed amount of months later. Now, on a side note, this X could symbolize 10, which would make it 10 months later, or the X could mean just a random amount of time. But anyway, the scene outside the factory was quiet and cold, with the X-Men's logo adorning the building as a symbol of their presence. So, as Paula, the police officer, drove even closer to the entrance and stepped out into the snow, she was eventually met with a cold metallic door. And after knocking, the intercom crackled to life as a voice on the other side said, "Hello." To which Chief Paula Robbins, Merle Police Department, introduced herself. And just like that, the person on the other side of the door replied by saying just a moment, as the door clicked open, and she was met by her host, Dr. Hank McCoy, also known as Beast. Now in the beginning, Paula was completely shocked by his appearance, as he greeted her and thanked her for coming. In fact, he even told her not to worry about taking off her boots, because their base is still under construction. So with that courtesy shown, Paula quickly apologized for her initial reaction, to which Beast smiled and responded by saying, think nothing of it, for he is quite used to that reaction. So once introductions were out of the way, Paula brought up how Mr. Summers had invited her to come and see what they all had been up to. To which Beast nodded and responded by saying, as the commander of the X-Men, Scott has had to take the team into the field. And because of that, Beast would have to be the one to explain their day-to-day operations. So with that said, we transition over to the quote-unquote field operation in Santo Marco, as Scott Summers, better known as Cyclops, was coming in hot and avoiding incoming fire with his team. And while they are avoiding an assault from the mainland, Kid Omega brings up how he should have never joined his team, to which Cyclops disregards his comment and tells him to calm down, because he died more than anyone on board their craft, so he should be used to it by now. Because one thing about Kid Omega during the Krakoan era was that he always, for some reason, ended up dying. But anyway, we transitioned to the back of the craft, as both MAGIK and Juggernaut tried their best to determine who was going to take the lead. But the only problem they were having in regards to finding a winner was both parties kept picking rock. So with no clear winner, Cyclops commanded the assault team to move out. And just like that, they sprang into action. MAGIK used her abilities to teleport the two of them above the battlefield, and off to battle they went. Now the team worked with precision, as each member played their part perfectly, because Juggernaut's brute strength and Illyana's teleportation skills were critical in creating an opening. Because after all, according to Juggernaut, 2 was all they needed to get the job done. So with the Vanguard out, Cyclops issued an order for Kid Omega to execute a psychic EMP on all designated targets on his mark. And as soon as Cyclops gave the order, Kid Omega did as he was told, and every ORCHIS soldier froze in their tracks, as a new mutant by the name Temper stood ready. So with the battlefield on pause, Kid Omega engaged the Marauder's autopilot to create a window for a combat landing for the rest of the team. So with everything a go, Temper let out a massive burst of snow upon the tropical island and froze every ORCHIS soldier as well, but unlike Kid Omega's work, hers was physically. And on the next page, we see Juggernaut and MAGIK storming the enemy's stronghold and completely taking out the anti-air defenses, and as for Cyclops, Kid Omega, Temper, and PSYLOCKE, they made their entrance, and they were ready to save their people. So with that done, we jump back over to the factory with Paula walking alongside Beast in a greenhouse observing the hydroponic crops. Because Beast explains that they are able to grow tomatoes, peppers, cucumbers, even potatoes in the factory, because the factory affords them a great deal of space for their endeavors. And on a side note, we see Mr. Robert Herman aka Glob, and we learn that his main job, while living there, is to maintain the gardens. But anyway, on the next page, we learn from Paula that there are a lot of folks in town that talks about what the X-Men could be doing up in the factory. Because there are hard feelings about them taking the factory as their own, because a lot of people made their livelihoods there before it was shut down. Now, this caused Beast to sigh because this was a sentiment the X-Men were aware of. So, with that said, Paula continued to say, "It's not that they are ungrateful for what the X-Men did for their town, it's just that times have been hard since the manufacturing stopped and the jobs went away." Now, this verbiage was not lost on Beast because while they were walking, he led her to an untouched room and stated, he supposed so. But he must say manufacturing is a bit of disingenuous wordplay to use considering the jobs her people did was build sentinels. So with that said, we jump back over to Santa Marco, and when we get there, we see some ORCHIS soldier butchering someone who could heal, someone who knows about the X-Men. The individual goes on to say the X-Men are coming for him, and he wouldn't want to be in their way when they show up. Now at first, this ORCHIS soldier told the man to shut up, because there is no way they could have found out they were there, because they scanned for transponders, and on top of all that, the prisoner wasn't even psychic. But see, this prisoner isn't any normal person, but rather it was Wolverine, and he personally didn't have to be psychic. Because he had friends who are, like Jean Grey, Kid Omega, Emma Frost, and much more. And announced to them, Wolverine has been thinking pretty loud as of late, and it sounds like one of his friends has had their ears on. So with that out there, PSYLOCKE drove her psi-knives deep into the ORCHIS soldier's mind to get the intel needed to accomplish their goals. Now while she was in his head, she told Kid Omega to enter her thoughts, only surface level, and transmit it to the rest of the team. Now while Kid Omega was doing just that, he couldn't help but to ask why the ORCHIS soldiers were all wearing X's on their uniforms. So with that question out there, PSYLOCKE broke away from the main team to save Wolverine while Juggernaut explained everything. He explained how the ORCHIS remnant, the fourth school, after the AI betrayed the human part of ORCHIS, the fourth school spread like crazy through what was left. So basically this new group is a product of ORCHIS science propaganda. So as the battle waged on, Cyclops let out a massive beam that bounced off the wall and hit several ORCHIS members as Juggernaut and MAGIK stood off against a classic Sentinel. So as that was going on, Temper went on to say, the fourth school believes that the 3-inch species predicted by John Sublime is actually AI, and so they need to become the fourth species, which is a mix of humans, AI, and mutants. So if you really look at it, the humans no longer want to kill the mutants, but instead, they now want to consume them. So with that explained, Cyclops went on to say 6 days ago Cerebro picked up 6 pings, 6 new mutants. And since Wolverine was in the area, he asked if he could investigate, but before he could report back in, the team received a psychic distress call. So it is up to them to get them back. Now following that explanation, Paula tells Beast that he is not wrong for feeling the way he does, because she didn't like that her town industry was building murder robots, and a lot of people thought the same. But now she have a town with a lot of people with no jobs who had been hoping this factory would open up again someday. Which very obviously is not going to happen now. Because first ORCHIS automated their factory, and then the Avengers smashed it, and now the X-Men took it. So with her point of view out there, Beast and Paula continued their tour, and during the tour, Paula went on to say, why here, why Alaska? Because according to her, Alaska isn't the easiest place in the world to grow food and travel from. To which Beast responds by saying, their agricultural endeavors are just one project that they are pursuing. But the long and the short of it is that they are trying to build a life in a place that was good for nothing but death. Because the Sentinels that were built there had a hand in the burning of my kinds. For the mutants had an Eden that was taken from them, and so now they must find a new place in the world all over again. And ever have refugees had to settle for the broken and unwanted places of Earth. So with that explanation, Paula apologized and said this factory must be a far cry from Krakoa. Now this was something Beast had to say. He wouldn't know anything about it. So with their conversation coming to an end, we jump back over to Santa Marco. And once there, we see one member of the fourth exiting the room with Wolverine's organs as the other is left to watch over him. But unlucky for the guard left behind, PSYLOCKE appeared from out of the shadows and went to town. So as that was going down, Temper and Kid Omega were having a small interaction. And during the conversation, Kid Omega asked how many times have Cyclops and the X-Men have failed them and resulted in their deaths. To which Temper responded by saying she is here to make sure the X-Men fail no one else. And then she went on to say, besides she didn't see her ex-boyfriend, referring to Kid Omega, coming to her rescue when she was thrown into the pit of Krakoa. So, as their battle intensified, the Sentinel was moments away from crushing them when a blast echoed through the room. On the next page, we see Cyclops and Magik walking through a hole in the wall as the sentinel that once threatened their lives had its head melted off. With that situation dealt with, PSYLOKKE appeared in the room with Wolverine at her side. With one part of their mission completed, they were about to go on the hunt for the other mutants there, when Kid Omega got a psychic alert from the Marauders because apparently they had bombers on the way. Because, as we all know, the X gene usually activates at puberty, but in this case, strangely enough, there are no kids there, and all they could find are adults. And just like that, 6 members of the 4th descended from the sky. So, as the battle was about to kick off, we jumped back over to Alaska with Beast introducing Paula to Zorn. Now, on this team, Zorn acts as their healer, but Beast states that they are all free to pursue their interests while their more martial brethren act in a more kinetic direction, for the X-Men are not hiding their monsters. And just as he said that, a voice spoke out and asked if he was sure about that, or is it their greatest monsters appears not so different from humans. And at that moment, Max arrived on the scene, and almost immediately, Max couldn't help but to notice that Paula was reaching for her weapon. So with that out there, Max continues to ask if he was frightening, to which Beast responds by saying as someone who spent the better part of his teenage years trying to murder him, yes. Now to this answer, Max went on to say, and look at what brilliant people they all have become. For it was fear of him that honed Scott into a leader, that made Jean strong enough to wield cosmic power, that gave Warren the strength to survive Apocalypse. That gave Robert the strength to discover his Omega-level potential, and finally for Charles to give him the steel that he had tempered. And if anyone knows anything about metal, it would be him, for he understands metal. So in the end he was what they needed to be great. So with that said, Paula stepped forward and asked, then what do they need Max to be now then? To which Max responded by saying he is a dragon and Beast is the one with the soft touch. For Beast makes the humans tea, he shows them Herman's gardens, he shows them Zorn's healing. He puts them at ease, for he wants them to go and tell all the other humans that we are friendly, and they have nothing to fear. But as the dragon, Max is here so that Paula can tell the rest of the humans his side of things. For he is Magneto, and he was never friendly, and he is to be feared, and as for all the mutants, they are his children of the atom, and they will be allowed to thrive. So with that explained, we jump right into the thick of the battle, and when we get there, we see both sides going at it. PSYLOKKE points out how these mutant psi signals matches the one Cerebro picked up on earlier. Now this is usually impossible, because like I said earlier, the X genes don't activate in adults, especially not 6 of them at the same time. So with that going down, Kid Omega double-checked and confirmed that these are not Frankenstein graft jobs, but actually real mutants. So with this mystery on the table, the game completely changed. So with this newest twist of events, Magik asked what are they supposed to do in regards to saving them. Now this put Cyclops at a pause, because he asked his opponent to stop and listen to him, because if they are mutants, then they have more reasons to be friends than enemies. But no matter what he said, this abnormal mutant wanted nothing more than to do battle. So with the 4th members refusing to listen, Magik decided to call an audible and sliced her opponent's arm clean off. Now with peace off the table, on the next panel, we get a glance at whoever is watching them. And the silhouetted individuals state the 4th school cells were a paper tiger, but we lucked out on the genetic material they had to offer. So with that said, the individual went on to say 3K hasn't had such a string of success since they began their great work. So with that out there, when we jump back to the battle we discover that these newly activated mutants were all spies and terrorists, but they are also too new to their powers, so because of that, the X-Men have already turned the tables against them. So since the 4th school reneged on their payment, with Wolverine, they inclined to repossess the products of all our hard work. So because of that they took back what they dropped off. Now with the battle over, we fast forward to the team returning to the factory, and when we see them, Scott is talking about their people, but Wolverine wasn't trying to hear it, because he was getting tired of playing civilization building. Because after the event of Krakoa, he didn't have it in him anymore. Now with that said, Cyclops states that Wolverine never gives up, to which Logan doubles down and reconfirms that he is done. So as he turns to walk away, he tells Scott not to come looking for him. Now with Logan off the team, East and Magneto walked up to meet Scott, and the main thing they wanted to know was the whereabouts of the new mutants. To which Cyclops stated there was indeed new mutants, but they wasn't young. So, with that said, he tossed Beast the frozen arm and asked him to figure out how 6 adults were able to activate an X gene. Now, with that out there, we see Beast filling Cyclops in on what all went down while he was away, and how he was able to put the chief at ease, despite Max putting some fear in her. Now Cyclops took that as good news because they will need the chief's help if they want to accomplish their goals, because as of right now, they are too vulnerable up there until they normalize relationships with the town. And speaking of the town, Beast went on to say he is ready to start stripping that thing for parts if he could lend him Juggernaut, Illyana, and Quentin. Now to this, Scott took a sip of his drink and said, "Not yet," because he wants to be sure the town don't forget what they owe them, and with that said, the first issue from X-Men from the Ashes comes to an end. Now with that said, I got to say I am excited about this new era of X-Men, and already I am looking forward to how they will implement the fourth school into the story as well as the adults who are able to activate their X genes. And as for Wolverine leaving, that is normal stuff, considering he always has his own comic line anyway, so there isn't anything groundbreaking there. But one name they brought up that caught my attention was John Sublime. Now this is a name that any old school X-Men reader should know about, and let me just tell you, if he is truly returning, then things are about to get good. So as of right now, I'm pleased with how this first issue kicked off. But anyway, down in the comment section below, let me know your thoughts about this issue and what predictions you could have moving forward. So with that established, I hope you enjoyed this video, and please don't forget to leave a like and a comment if you want to see more videos like this. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.